If you've been playing top tier jets ever since the introduction of Sky Flashes, AIM 72s, and the Swedish Sky Flash, whatever, you've probably been dying to Fox 1 missiles a lot more often than you had previously, and well, it's pretty self-explanatory as to why. These missiles start tracking off the rail way faster than the old AIM 70 Sparrows did, and not only that, they pull twice as many Gs, so they are very, at least competitive missiles, but also in my opinion the most satisfying ones to get kills with. If you find yourself ever in situations where you're fighting somebody with radar guided missiles and you feel like it's kind of completely up to chance whether or not you're gonna get the kill or you're gonna die, and you don't really understand what it is you're doing or what you should be doing when using them, well, this video is probably for you. On the other hand, there's probably a lot of you out there as well that know all of this already, and you're not going to want to watch this. Hey, that's okay. This is more of a beginner video, I guess you can call it. As the title suggests, it is the basics. So let's go on ahead and jump right into a Fox 1 engagement. And I say engagement because this is going to be me shooting at somebody with a Fox 1 missile, and they're also going to be shooting one at me. So it's kind of a jousting match. And it's all going to come down to who hits whose missile hits the target first. That's what I'm trying to say. So the way you're going to do that is to make sure you're going faster than the target. If somebody is going faster than you, they have an immediate advantage. Their missile is going to come off the rail at a higher speed, and it's going to give it a speed bonus in the long run because, well, if it comes off the rail at a higher speed, it's going to be faster all the way to the target. After that, you're going to kind of crank left or right. Make sure you're not flying right at the enemy, because by turning any direction, and especially diving, you're increasing the amount of time it takes for the missile to get to the target, and you just want yours to hit first. Once the enemy plane blows up, their missile is rendered useless. It's also important to understand the abilities of your missile, like what's the max range? Well, there's really not a clear answer to that. I'm going to show you why. You just kind of have to learn, what you're doing and how you're doing it at the time of launching. Right here, we're going to be going really fast at really high altitude, and our target is going to just keep flying right on towards us. This is a 20-kilometer launch. That's a pretty far range kill and all, and certainly fits the title of Beyond Visual Range, but does that ever really happen in real aerialistic battles? No. Big shout out to Fox McAlpine, by the way. I appreciate you, man. He's the guy that's helping me record this right now, and it took a lot of time out of his day to do so, so I really appreciate it. But anyways, let's look at something more realistic. We're at lower altitude, but we launch at the same range as we did at that high altitude launch. Not only that, but we're also going to be seen Fox here evade the missile instead of flying straight at it, and he doesn't do too much effort, but he certainly does a lot more than he has to. At 20 kilometers and this altitude, launching at a speed of I think it was Mach 1.2, the missile's not going to reach him as long as he just cranks left or right a little bit. He does a little more than he has to, but he gets the point across. Your missile's going to have various ranges based on the conditions of which it's fired upon. And if you ever see me play with these Fox 1 missiles, you'll notice that I typically wait as long as I think I can before launching, and oftentimes I'll even bring it all the way down to the minimum launch range as long as I'm confident that they don't already have a missile in the air. The reason I do this is because that means my missile is going to be going faster as it's closing into the target than it would if I launched at further range, and it'd be slowing down and kind of gliding toward the target. You also saw me crank to the left there just to increase the time it takes for his missile to get to me. Of course, you could always chaff, but chaff is certainly not reliable. I would not trust your life with it. But if you are going to use chaff, make sure you're using it properly. Don't just drop it behind you as you fly directly at the missile. Set it offset about 90 degrees to your left or right, wherever the missile is coming from, and make sure you're deploying chaff while the missile is perfectly 90 degrees perpendicular to your plane. Or if you're diving, do the best you can to dive straight up and down. So I'm going to put this Phantom here 90 degrees off my left wing because that's the ideal aspect in which to deploy chaff. You're going to see me in the form of flares because you're probably not going to see my plane. Just know there's chaff mixed in there. Oh wait, we need cinematic mode. Much better. Now, admittedly, he did launch his missile at pretty close range. It is entirely possible it wouldn't have tracked me even if I hadn't deployed chaff. Regardless, that is the proper way to deploy chaff. You want to get it as much of a profile view as you possibly can to that missile. And if you're going vertical, make sure again you're going as straight up and down as you can. I know it's not possible unless you run your plane into the ground, but where it is possible, try to give it as much of a profile against your plane as possible. The more straight on directly you fly to the missile while deploying chaff, the less your chaff is going to have an effect and might not even affect the radar at all. Even if your chaff does effectively fool the radar, there's no guarantee that the missile is going to home in on your chaff. For whatever reason, War Thunder has it modeled so that the missile will still sometimes track the target even though the radar itself is pointed at the chaff. It kind of turns into a Fox 3 at that point. I don't know why. It might be a glitch or it might be intentional. Either way, chaff is certainly not reliable. Even if you use it 100% perfectly, it's just not a get out of jail free card like you see with flares. It's not supposed to be either. You don't really want to use chaff unless you have to as a last resort or in addition to trying to kinetically defeat the missile. So let's go over everything again as best we can in summary. Number 1, remember what kind of variables are going to be affecting your missile. what altitudes are you at? You know, the lower the altitude, the more drag the missile's going to experience, the less range, and also the easier and faster it will slow down when somebody or you is trying to kinetically defeat a missile. Secondly, speed is key. You want to make sure when you're launching a missile at somebody, you're going faster than they are at the time of launch. That's going to give you a massive advantage. Even if it's just a couple hundred kilometers faster, your missile is going to be that much quicker at making its way to the target, and as long as it hits the target and shuts the radar off, you don't even have to worry about their missile hitting you anymore. It's simply not going to track without its mothership radar pointing it in the right direction. In addition to making sure you're going faster to make sure that your missile hits the target first, you can also increase the time or the flight time of the enemy missile to make sure that it takes a longer amount of time, in getting to you. You're going to do this by cranking. That's kind of turning left or right in an offset direction in relation to the target. And even better yet, if you're at altitude, start diving towards the deck while you're doing it. Again, missiles will slow down significantly faster in that thicker, denser air at lower altitudes, and this is indeed modeled in War Thunder. If you can help it, try to wait to launch your missile as long as you can. The closer you get, the faster it's going to be as it's nearing its target, and that's just going to help you more, considering it's going to be harder for the enemy to dodge a faster missile than it is a slow one. They have to work really hard to bleed that missile's energy, and once the missile loses energy, it's not going to get it back. So make sure it has an abundance of energy as it's closing in on the target. If you hadn't already noticed, when it comes to beyond visual range fighting, there's pretty much no hard set yes or no answers to any of it. It's all variables, and the key to winning is making sure that you have as many of those variables stacked in your favor as possible. You want to make the fight as unfair as you possibly can. And if you are the one, on the other hand, that has all the variables stacked against you, you should probably just not take the fight in the first place. What I mean is, if there's somebody that you just know is going faster than you, say you're only traveling at Mach 0.8, and you know they've got 2,000 meters altitude on you in addition to that, you're probably not going to get your missile to the target before they get theirs to you, and you probably just shouldn't be choosing that fight in the first place. If you don't have any of these variables on your side, just be full defensive, and that way you don't have to worry about keeping your nose pointed at the target to keep your radar lock, and you can maneuver and defend yourself a lot more aggressively because you don't have to worry about that 120 degree field of view for your radar. If you absolutely have to, and you've already gotten yourself so close to the enemy to where it's too late to bleed the missile of its energy, and you don't want to rely on chaff 100%, what you can do is make sure you're not going too fast to where you're compressing and you can't pull the high G numbers that your aircraft is capable of, but make sure that you're still going decently fast. And wait, last second, you have to kind of time it. It's going to take some practice. So you kind of have to judge in relation to when you see that missile launch, to the time the missile indicator disappears, and then at the last second, pull really hard one direction, and the missile is probably going to be going too fast to pull the proper lead to recalculate your flight path, as long as you're pulling it at the right time. This, of course, is a very, very tricky thing to do, and I don't recommend it, only as a last resort. Anyways, I feel like this video is probably kind of botched. It might be one of my worst explained videos yet. So if you guys have any questions, need clarification, feel free to comment down below. I answer all of them. And if the video is just complete garbage and you didn't learn anything, also let me know down in the comments below. I will completely scrap it, delete it, and remake it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from the video. I really do. And most importantly, I hope I'll see you on the next one.